Candy Moodley. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Candy Travel. I'm your host, Candy Moodley. Over the last 5 years, I've successfully hosted over 25 group trips and made 6 figures in income by helping people like you create unforgettable travel experiences. Today, we'll delve into an essential aspect of your trip planning: budgeting and pricing the trip. This episode will equip you with the tools and knowledge you need to effectively manage your expenses and set the right trip fees. Understanding your trip expenses. The first step in budgeting is keeping track of all your trip expenses. Being detail-oriented and organized is crucial for this process. I recommend creating a simple Google spreadsheet to track everything related to your group trip. If you don't already have a system in place, this is a great starting point. In your spreadsheet, you can keep track of accommodations. Record the costs for the places where your group will stay. Transportation, include car rentals, guides, drivers, taxis, domestic flights, and any other means of travel. Fuel, if you're renting vehicles, don't forget to account for fuel costs. Activities, experiences, list all planned excursions, workshops, or guided tours. Food meals, track the budget for breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. Other expenses, keep track of miscellaneous costs like entrance fees or equipment rentals. Transaction fees. Remember to account for any fees associated with payments. Additionally, consider adding a section to list your trip participants, tracking their payments, and noting important information such as flight details, passport info, or food allergies. This level of organization will pay off in the long run. Setting the trip fee. Now that you have a clear picture of your expenses, it's time to determine your trip fee. The big question is, how do you price your trip to cover your costs while also ensuring a profit? First, calculate how much profit you want to make on this group trip. Is it 5K, 10K, or even 15K? This number is entirely up to you. Keep in mind the amount of work you'll put into planning, launching, marketing, and leading the trip. To determine a reasonable profit margin, ask yourself, how many hours will I invest in planning this trip? What are the tax implications I need to consider on my profit? Will this effort be worth my time away from home and other responsibilities? Once you decide on your profit margin, add that to your total trip expenses. Here's a quick example for clarity. Total trip expenses: $30,000 desired profit, $10,000 total trip expenses, $40,000 to find the cost per participant. Divide the total trip expenses by the number of paying participants. Remember, if you have fewer participants, the cost per person will rise. For example, if you want 10 paying participants, each would need to pay $4,000 to cover your expenses and desired profit. Here's the breakdown. Total trip expenses: $40,000 divide by participants, 10, $4,000 per person. If you instead have 14 participants, you would charge around $2,900 per person. The takeaway here is that the larger the group, the lower the cost per person can be, including helpers and discounts. If you plan to bring along a helper or photographer, factor in their costs, including flights. Typically, I limit my trips to a maximum of 16 people, which includes myself and any helpers. When calculating expenses, I consider the costs for all 16 travelers, not just the paying participants. Another aspect to consider is discounts. If you offer an early bird discount, ensure you factor this into your trip fee. For example, if your trip fee is $3,000 and you aim for a $10,000 profit, you won't have much room for discounts unless you increase the regular fee slightly. By bumping up the perceived value by $200, $500, you can market the trip at $3,000, including an early bird discount. This approach incentivizes participants to sign up early while emphasizing the trip's value. Trip inclusions and exclusions. Deciding what to include and exclude in your trip fee is critical. Clarify this in your marketing materials to avoid confusion down the line. Here's what I typically include in my group trips: accommodations, covering the duration of the trip from start to finish; transportation, all ground transportation during the trip, including domestic flights when necessary; guides and excursions, Most activities are included, except for a few optional add-ons. All meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Trip. Inclusions and exclusions. Now let's discuss some of the key exclusions that I typically outline. Travel fees. This includes baggage fees, taxes, visas, and other travel-related costs that participants may need to pay themselves. Vaccinations. Any required vaccinations for the destination should be the responsibility of the traveler. Travel insurance. It is crucial for participants to secure their own travel insurance to cover any emergencies or cancellations during the trip. Souvenirs and incidentals. Encourage participants to budget for personal expenses, like souvenirs and snacks that are not included in the trip fee. Flights to, from the destination. Make sure it's clear that participants are responsible for booking their own flights to and from the destination. Alcoholic or specialty drinks. Typically, these are not included in the trip fee, so participants should budget accordingly. Snacks. While meals are included, participants should be aware that snacks may fall outside of the package. Tips for guides. It's best practice to let participants know that gratuities for guides are not included and that they may want to budget for that. Communicating clearly. When planning your trip, ensure you communicate inclusions and exclusions clearly in all of your marketing materials. Avoid confusion by providing a detailed itinerary alongside the costs. This transparency builds trust with your participants and helps avoid misunderstandings later. Remember, the clearer you are, the more confident your participants will feel about their investment. Conclusio. In summary, effectively budgeting and pricing your group trip requires thorough planning and attention to detail. By tracking your expenses, setting reasonable prices, including profits, and communicating clearly about what's included or excluded, you set yourself up for success. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to Candy Travel. Your support helps me continue providing valuable insights for aspiring travel hosts like you. And don't miss the next episode where I'll share essential strategies for marketing and promotion to attract more participants and maximize your trip's success. Thank you for tuning in today. Happy trip planning, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.